Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very pleased to welcome our guest of honor, Justice and Mrs. Goff.
Well, welcome. We have an empty seat up here that is soon going to be filled, and we'll find out by whom. We're pleased to have so many distinguished guests here to celebrate Justice Goff's investiture, including many of Wabash County. And I wonder if anything important is being done in Wabash County, since most of you are down here today. So a special hello. We all went down to the House of Representatives, where it's full of Wabash County attorneys and residents, so they're watching us, as well as Justice Goff's grandparents, I believe, are watching us via the internet. This is live. And at Justice Rucker's retirement, Justice Sullivan actually watched it from Greece. Is that correct? So we love the technology here on the court. My colleagues and I, Justice Steve David, Mark Massa, and Jeffrey Slaughter, welcome you to the United Supreme Court. Justice Goff will introduce his family a little bit later in the ceremony, but I'd like to welcome his wife, Raquel. Welcome, Raquel. We have many judicial colleagues that are here, so I'd ask that you just hold your applause until we name all of them. From our hardworking Court of Appeals, we have Chief Judge Vedic, along with her colleagues, John Baker, Edward Najam Jr., L. Mark Bailey, Melissa May, Margaret Robb, Paul Mathias, Terry Crone, Cale Bradford, Rudolph Pyle, and Bob Altice. From our tax court, we have Martha Wentworth. We're pleased to have so many of our federal colleagues here today, and I like to always joke we will be out of here at 11:37 for those that don't know what the federal ceremonies are like. We have Dave Hamilton, Judge Richard Young, William Lawrence, Deborah McVicker Lynch, Robin Moberly, James Carr, and the newest addition, we're sorry to have left the state bench, James Ayler. We have former Supreme Court Justices Robert Rucker, Brent Dixon, Randall Shepard, Fred Sullivan Jr., Ted Boehm. We're also joined by many distinguished state elected and appointed officials from the executive and legislative branches, including our Governor Eric Holcomb, First Lady Janet Holcomb, Auditor Tara Klutz, Senator Andy Zay. I'd also like to recognize members from the Judicial Nominating Commission who are with us today. I cannot tell you the hours that this group, and I see you all over there, put in with regard to this and many selections recently. We have Molly Kitchell, Lynette Long, James Young, John Feitner, and Rudy Yakum III. Also, another group that worked hard to make today happen was counsel to the Governor Joe Herons and his staff, Sharon Jackson, Cynthia Crosco, and Michael Nassett. Thank you, and welcome today as well. And finally, we have many trial court judges from across the state. Would you all please stand and be recognized? Our hard-working trial court judges that are here. They're all looking around at each other. Should we really stand? Yes. Throughout today's ceremony, you'll hear from all of our colleagues on the bench, and we're going to start with Justice Mark Massa. Justice Massa?
Thank you, Chief Justice. I am pleased to introduce Joe Northrup, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Northrup is a practicing attorney in Huntington County and is Justice Goff's former law partner. He served in the United States Air Force and rose to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Sir.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Colonel Northrup. I'm now pleased to call on and introduce Alex Felder, who will lead us in an invocation. Pastor Falder is the lead pastor at Wabash Friends Church and a close friend of Justice Goff.
Well, it has been a privilege to walk beside Justice Goff as his pastor and friend. And I have come to know him the last 7 years and know that he has grown more than just in his vocation, but he has grown in his character. And that has shown up in his relationships with his family, with his community, and with God. I feel like the governor and his team has made an excellent choice. And I'm honored to be here, and I would ask that you would pray with me. Almighty God, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. In your presence, we honor you and thank you for shining your face upon us and be gracious to us. We thank you for the establishment of the justice system, allowing us to live pure, speak truth, right wrong, and ultimately follow you. We invite you, O Lord, into this celebration and appointment, the 110th Supreme Court Justice of Indiana, Christopher Michael Goff. Our prayer for Justice Goff is that he would act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with you, O God. I pray that you would grant him the wisdom of Solomon, the passion and heart of David, the loyalty of Jonathan, the enduring integrity of Joseph, the courage and fearlessness of Joshua, the collaborative leadership of Nehemiah, the community of brothers and sisters like Paul, and finally, that Chris would be full of grace and truth like your son Jesus. As Justice Goff and the Supreme Court of Indiana fight for justice and against injustice, may the words of Isaiah 58 come true for them. That your light would break forth like the dawn, that your healing would quickly appear, that the righteousness would go before you, and the glory of the Lord would be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. And as you ask for help, he will say, "Here am I." If you do away with the yoke of oppression and spend yourself on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like noonday. And the Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame, and you will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. And your people will rebuild ancient ruins and raise up old foundations. And you will be called a repairer of broken walls and restorers of streets with dwellings. So anoint this day your servant, Christopher Michael Goff, with all he needs to fulfill his duties and office. And we pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus, the coming friend, rescuer, and judge. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Falder. It's my honor now to say a few words of welcome to my new colleague. And Chris, I would note, like the rest of us up here, you've already been a member of this court for about a month. Each of us, I think, had our formal investiture ceremonies days or weeks after starting the job. And I think that is a fortunate circumstance. It lets the new justice get acclimated. It lets the court continue its work at full strength, largely uninterrupted. It allows our outstanding staff to plan the details of this special day. And most importantly, provides us the privilege of getting to know you and to see you at work. Prior to your appointment, I knew you only by reputation, which I knew to be stellar. But after a month of working closely with you, I can confirm with firsthand knowledge what everyone else in this room already knew, that our governor has made a very wise choice. You have a well-honed legal mind, we all knew that. But in addition, from day one, you have displayed all the other traits one would look for in an appellate jurist and a colleague. You are prepared, patient, gentle, and kind. And those who have known you longer will soon expand on the point. But suffice to say, I am honored to be your colleague and grateful for the privilege of what I hope will be many years of collaborative effort and blossoming friendship. As for advice, it would be dangerous to take any from me. So perhaps you'd be better served in the moment by the wisdom of Winston Churchill, who, as a young member of Parliament more than 100 years ago, said, "In politics, when you are in doubt what to do, do nothing. When you are in doubt what to say what you really think." And though you're not specifically in politics with a capital P, I think it's pretty good advice for the junior justice, for the guy who has to vote first and speak first on every case we discuss in conference. When you are in doubt what to do, do nothing, secure in the knowledge that our Court of Appeals hits for a pretty high average. And when you're in doubt what to say what you really think, because we need to hear it, and we'll be the better for it. Finally, occasions like this provide an opportunity to contemplate history and perspective, to ponder the shoes we've been left to fill. You are but the 110th person to serve on this court in the 200-year history of our state, and the 5th new justice in 7 years. This complete makeover comes after a golden era for our court, when it gained a national reputation like never before. Sir Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Our giants are here today. Shepard, Dixon, Boehm, Sullivan, Rucker. We stand on their shoulders, and I hope we can help each other keep our balance as we strive to see further. Welcome again, Justice Goff, to this daunting and endless challenge. We all know that you are up to it. Welcome. Pleased now to turn the program over to my colleague, Justice Jeffrey Slaughter.
Good morning. Welcome this morning. We're grateful to have longtime attorney Mark Gennon here on behalf of the Wabash Bar.
May it please the court, justices, Governor Holcomb, judges, friends, and family. Chris Goff served Wabash County as our Superior Court judge for a number of years. He redefined the court's role. Judge Goff envisioned a court that could do more, accomplish more, be more. Over time, others in our small rural community began to share his vision. Results became reality. Because of him, our community, our people became better, became stronger. Justice Goff sought advice and counsel from others in the judicial system, in the government, and in the community. Many of you are here today to help decide whether to stay or whether to seek this position. Governor Holcomb, in selecting Justice Goff, demonstrated a vision that our court should see Indiana citizens as people, not as problems. Our Supreme Court justices demonstrate daily a commitment to a strong and balanced judiciary, openly and fully aware of the demands placed upon them. This culture of commitment and dedication is exactly where Judge Christopher Goff needed to be, and at a time when our state needs him. As members of the Wabash County Bar Association, Justice Goff and I share more than just our love for the law, the Wabash community, and the state of Indiana. We graduated from the same rural high school in our farming locale, with approximately 400 students in the top 4 classes. College attendance was the exception, not the norm. Graduate degrees are rare indeed. Justice Goff's appointment will serve as an inspiration for many young Hoosier students throughout our state. They now recognize there is a future in Indiana, and that future can be good. A Hoosier through and through, he attended 2 fine Indiana schools, Ball State University and Indiana University Law School. Chris Goff's roots in Indiana run deep. Justice Goff is strong in spirit, conviction, and body, even though there is one minor area where his judgment may be questioned. Each December, Chris runs the 50K Ultra Trail Marathon, known as the Huff. key points: runs a marathon, ultra marathon, in December, 50K on trails. Please note here, in Indiana, we have perfectly good roads that are actually getting better. Thank you. We have 4 seasons, so you don't have to wait and schedule a run in the winter. And if you notice, Judge, the starting line of this marathon is actually very near the finish line. You do not have to run 30 miles to get there. Justice Goff is committed and not afraid of a challenge. Serving this court is a challenge. Even the process of selection of a judge to our higher courts is a marathon, an ultra-marathon, and not a sprint. The Judicial Nominating Commission, the governor and his staff, the state senators and representatives spend hundreds of hours vetting candidates. The candidates spend a great deal of time preparing as well. As an example, earlier this year, Justice Goff returned from a family vacation in Destin, Florida. His step was light, his eyes were sparkled, and as any obsequious attorney would, I asked him how he enjoyed his vacation. I was expecting to hear about the sand and the sun, visions of the Gulf's waters. Instead, and without a hint of sarcasm, he began describing how fascinating and interesting he found Justice Scalia and Brian Gardner's book, Reading the Law, the Interpretation of Legal Texts. I immediately determined that this person needs to be on our Supreme Court. In one day in Wabash County courtroom, as in many rural courtrooms throughout our state, multiple criminal arraignments, change of plea hearings, criminal sentencing hearings, a bond reduction hearing, and a protective order all may be heard before lunch, followed by a personal injury summary judgment motion with hundreds of pages in briefs and exhibits, and then a final hearing in a dissolution of marriage action involving child custody, all before the end of the day. The new position will be an adjustment. Justice Goff is prepared for the challenge. Each case remains the same, whether at the trial court level or in our higher courts. In each case, Justice Goff will see the people as people, not as problems. I'm a little excited, I apologize. Appearing before our state's highest courts is a tremendous honor. There is pride and excitement felt by all lawyers when entering this room. Entrusted to present a case, the culmination of years of work, the future of our people, the future of our state, the future of our law, all hanging in the balance. Justice Goff is committed to this new challenge. No greater honor can be granted a lawyer in the state of Indiana than to serve on this court. The justices and the judges in this courtroom represent the very best of our legal community. Today, Justice Goff joins this community. Today and every day, he will be guided by Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. On behalf of the Wabash County Bar Association, please accept this introduction of Justice Christopher Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Gannon. I, too, am delighted to welcome Justice Goff, and not just because he supplants me as our court's newest member. Justice Massa alluded to the fact that our court's tradition is that the newest justice goes first at conference. Justice Rucker served in that capacity for a record 11 years. Now, as you know, Justice Goff, going first is an important responsibility, one that will no doubt keep you on your toes. But I hope you'll also view it as a privilege and an opportunity. You get to frame the issues. You get to make the first case to the rest of us why we should grant or deny transfer, affirm or reverse the trial court, and on what basis we should premise our decision. I hope that you'll relish that role and take full advantage of it. Now, many of you here today, especially Justice Goff's family and many friends from Wabash County know our new colleague better than we do, but we're learning. And though he's been with us only 6 weeks, we have a pretty good sense of the man, which I thought I would share with those who may not know him quite as well. For one thing, he is smart and personable. He is soft-spoken and exudes a quiet confidence. He's a hard worker, well-prepared, a good listener who's willing to consider other views, but he's no pushover. If he feels strongly about something, he's not shy about saying so. He'll stick to his guns and do what he thinks is right. In short, he has a wonderful judicial temperament, and he reminds me a great deal of the man he succeeds. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to be slightly presumptuous and offer our new colleague some friendly advice. Now, it's not original advice. It's the same advice that Harry Truman received more than 80 years ago when he was first elected to the U.S. Senate in 1934. Of course, Truman was from a small town in Missouri. When he arrived at the Capitol, he was awestruck by its history and by the majesty of the institution. He wondered how he would fit in where giants like Webster and Clay and Calhoun had debated the great issues of the day. One of Truman's colleagues, Hamilton Lewis of Illinois, who was the Democratic whip, told the freshman senator to avoid any inferiority complex. He said, "Harry, for the first 6 months, you'll wonder how you got here. And after that, you'll wonder how the rest of us got here." Let me assure you, Justice Goff, in case you harbor any doubt, you absolutely belong here. And please remember, so do we. Welcome to the court. I look forward to many years of service with you together. It's now my privilege to invite Governor Eric Holcomb to the podium to say a few words and then to administer the oath of office to Justice Goff, who is Justice Holcomb's first appointment to the appellate bench. Governor, the floor is yours.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chief Justice, Associate Justices, and gathered family and friends, one and all, it is an honor to be among you on this very special day in our state's history. It's a happy day. It's a proud day. And as you have detected already, it's a very emotional day for many of us. But be at ease. I will be brief, because I know why you're here today, and that is to celebrate Judge Christopher Goff. Suffice it to say, but I will repeat the obvious. There are few decisions that a governor can make that will have a more lasting impact on our state than appointing a justice to the Indiana Supreme Court. And during the entire process, we had a number, as you recall, a number of overly qualified candidates step forward. Brilliant legal minds. Folks who were always coming forward seeking to serve their state in another capacity. And as name after name came forward, one name kept jumping to the top, and that was Christopher Goff. Now, Justice Goff, as has already been shared, you and I both know you have some huge shoes to fill on the bench. I can relate, as we discussed this on more than one occasion. Your predecessor, Justice Rucker, was a legal giant, not just in the state of Indiana, but throughout our entire country. So no pressure. Because there's really not any pressure. Because I know, and everyone here knows, and those who aren't but are watching know, you are more than up to this task. Judge Goff's superb personal and professional qualities are immediately evident to anyone who spends any length of time in his presence. He has a profound respect for the Constitution and the rights and principles embodied in it. He's deeply devoted to the very cause of justice, and his sharp legal mind has been honed over the years, grounded in practical experience. Again, as was mentioned, deeply rooted in his community. And what became very clear to me upon our first introduction, our very first conversation, is that he is a forward thinker. As was mentioned, he is a trailblazer, one dedicated to making our court system even better. I look forward to seeing the mark that he makes on our court and on the entire state of Indiana as the years ahead unfold. It's now my honor to invite Judge Christopher Goff and his family up here to be sworn in as the newest Associate Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court. You'll raise your right hand. I, Christopher M. Goff, do solemnly swear
I, Christopher M. Goff, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court
of Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court
according to the best of my skill and ability,
according to the best of my skill and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I'd now like to invite Judge Robert McCallum III to bring the judicial road forward. Judge McCallum has served as Circuit Court Judge in Wabash County since 2005. His son, Robert McCallum IV, is married to Judge Goff's daughter, Anna. Justice Goff likes to say that Wabash County is so small that the only two judges in town had their children marry each other. Never is that zipper harder to do than when you're standing in front of 200 people. Congratulations. We're soon going to go into recess and return as a 5-member court with our newest colleague, Justice Goff. But first, Justice Rucker, your nameplate was on this bench for over 18 years. We'd like you to come forward and have this as a reminder of your service and for you to assist us in placing Justice Goff's name on the bench. Sir? At this point, we'll have our sheriff gavel the session to recess. Yeah, I know. Welcome back. This time I'd like to introduce the senior justice on the Indiana Supreme Court, Justice Stephen David, who will introduce our newest colleague.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you for the opportunity to allow me to concur with all that has been said, but to offer my own separate opinion. Governor Holcomb, Mrs. Holcomb, all distinguished guests, everyone here and everyone down in the House of Representatives, welcome. First, let's correct the record. Well, it's true that I am the most senior and the eldest on the Indiana Supreme Court. With all due respect, Madam Chief Justice, senior by a mere 2 years and less than 1 year on the chronological side. So while it's true that we have some youngsters and indeed just added another one to the court, I do want to remind you that you're not the only one on the, or I'm not the only one on the AARP front. Congratulations, Justice Goff. As mentioned previously, Justice Goff arrived a few weeks ago ready to work, and he didn't just hit the ground running, he hit the ground sprinting, and has already contributed much to your court. You may not know, but I was assigned to be his mentor. That's been the easiest assignment I've had since being on the Supreme Court. For those of you that are old enough to remember, I sort of feel like the Maytag repairman of mentors. Nothing to do. I do want everyone here, however, to know what Justice Goff has quickly learned. He gets to practice with 3 of the best lawyers I have ever known, but even more importantly, 3 of the best human beings I have ever known: Loretta Rush, Mark Massa, and Jeffrey Slaughter. Just like you, Justice Goff, they are crazy smart, deeply passionate, extremely hardworking, and incredibly humble. Justice Goff's experience as a trial court judge ensures that he understands lawyers and litigants and how sacred and respected and sometimes how vulnerable our judges are and therefore our justice system is. Justice Goff knows firsthand how incredibly important our trial judges are and what an amazing job they do for Indiana's citizens. In fact, you had a trial judge as your professional mentor, basically from day one. And Justice Goff has been a small-town lawyer with a big-time commitment to his clients, his community, and our legal profession. He's been everything in the law firm from chief cook to bottle washer, and along the way, he's been there, done that, and got the T-shirt. What a great perspective to bring to this court, your Indiana Supreme Court. And while I think the Indiana Supreme Court is a model of professionalism and civility, you join us, Justice Goff, in, to some extent, tumultuous times. A significant majority of this court does not understand hockey, nor quite frankly even care about hockey. Yet one of us plays. And it's hard for me to understand only a minority of this court is interested in the game of golf. We are hopelessly divided with any clear sign of a majority on the issue of favorite baseball teams. And as Justice Goff knows, this court was amicable and working well together until he joined the court. And that's reversed the long-standing precedent as he becomes the 3rd Maurer graduate, making this bench, the right end, very nervous. Some say you won the legal lottery of jobs, or how lucky you are, Justice Goff. I say those comments are interesting, but I respectfully dissent. There are over 5,000 lawyers in this state that were eligible to apply for this position. Only 20 dare even apply. And after all the vetting and interviewing and everything that you had to endure, your name, your reputation, your career, your record, your potential inspired the Judicial Nomination Commission to put your name forward, and Governor Holcomb selected you. He has, on behalf of 6.5 million Hoosiers, invested in you, Brother Chris. He has placed his trust in your hands, your head, and your heart. We believe he's hit a home run. And for what it's worth, I believe Governor Daniels and Governor Pence did a pretty good job, too. Right now, you sit in the seat that all of us have occupied. You sit in the same seat as 4 gentlemen on that front row have sat in. The mere mention of their names, former Justices Shepard, Dixon, Justices Bohm, Rucker, Sullivan, and Justice Selby, who could not be with us this morning. The mere mention of those names still chills me to my soul. Causes me to think and worry about the fact that I can't let them down. We know that you, Justice Goff, will not let them down. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that Justice Goff will not let anyone down and will make all of us very proud and in awe of his long and celebrated tenure on the Indiana Supreme Court. I introduce to you the future of the Indiana Supreme Court, Justice Christopher Goff. Governor and First Lady Holcomb, so many other distinguished guests, respected colleagues, beloved family and friends, welcome and thank you so much for being here. Before I begin my remarks, I want to take just a moment to acknowledge Catherine Dolan, Sarah Kidwell, Patrick McCauley, and the entire team at the court's Office of Communication, Education, and Outreach. Today's event is the fruit of their labor, and I especially appreciate it because so many of the people who I love, care about, and owe my success to are seeing this room and this building for the first time. Thank you for making this experience so memorable for all of us. I find myself filled with so many feelings that it is difficult to name them all. This morning, I'm going to talk to you about 3 of them. First of all, I feel grateful. I feel grateful to Governor Holcomb. Sir, thank you for the trust and the confidence that you have placed in me with this appointment. As someone who knows and respects Judges Vicki Carmichael and Matt Kincaid, I know that you had a very difficult decision to make. I feel grateful to the members of Governor Holcomb's legal team, Joe Herons, Sharon Jackson, Cindy Carrasco, and Michael Nossett. Your dedication to your duties was evident to me throughout the selection process. It has been an honor to get to know each of you. I feel grateful to Chief Justice Loretta Rush, members of the Indiana Judicial Nominating Commission, John Feitner, Rudy Yocum III, Charlie Berger, Lynette Long, Jim Young, and Molly Kitchell, and to their counsel, Adrian Myring. To each of you, thank you for the trust and the confidence that you placed in me with your nomination. And to Rudy, thank you for encouraging me to apply. If you'd not done so, I would not be here. I feel grateful to my family, to my grandparents, Don and Helen Jean Goff, who celebrated their 67th anniversary on Saturday. They're unable to be here today, but they are watching from their home in Wabash. To my mom and dad, Melody Sullivan and Mike Goff, who are both here today. When I was born, you were 19 and 20 years old. During my years in private practice and on the trial bench, I often worked with young couples, and I thought of the challenges that you must have faced. I hope that each of you enjoy today. This is your day too, and I love you both very much. To my sisters, Ella Smith and Maggie Hare, Ella is here today with her husband, Davin, and their 4 children. They live in Huntington, where Davin practices law. Maggie is here with her 2 children. They have traveled from Salem, Ohio. Maggie's husband, Scott, was unable to make it today due to work obligations. To my wife, Raquel's family, Raquel's mom passed away in 2002, and her father was unable to be here today due to the death of Raquel's aunt. However, 9 of Raquel's 11 siblings are here. Those attending include Nasaria Weaver, Alfonso Rodriguez, Edwina Keene and her husband Mike, Elva Brewer and her husband Elix, Olga Galvin and her husband Roy, Enrique Leal and his wife Kelly, Rosendo Mireles and his wife Rachel, Rosa Palmer, and Fortunato Carrillo and his wife, Michelle. Most of Raquel's siblings live in Wabash and Grant counties, but Elix and Elva traveled here from Dallas, Texas, and Rosendo, Rachel, and Rosa traveled here from Omaha, Nebraska. Most of our 24 nieces and nephews are also here today. To all members of our extended family, many live nearby, but others traveled the globe to be here today. Raquel's cousin Stevie is here from Seoul, South Korea. To all of you, thank you for your love, your support, and encouragement throughout our lives. I love you, and I'm so thankful that you are here today. I feel grateful to all my friends who are here in attendance. Whether you are a friend who I talk to on a regular basis or a friend with whom I have not spoken in years, please know that I think of you often. You have been and continue to be an important part of my life. Thank you for being here today. I feel grateful to former Governor Mitch Daniels for first appointing me to the trial bench in 2005, and to the citizens of Wabash County who elected me to continue serving them as judge in 2008 and again in 2014. I feel grateful to both my hometowns. My entire life to this point has been spent moving back and forth between Wabash and Huntington counties. Both places will always hold a special place in my heart. As a new attorney, I learned so much from Joe Northrup, but also from people like Jeff Heffelfinger, Mark McIntosh, Tom Hakes, John Branham, Joe Wiley, Scott Harder, and so many others. And although I did not always enjoy it at the time, I now remember fondly so many of the spirited arguments I had with Amy Richardson and Jamie Groves. As a new judge, I learned a great deal from senior judges like Dan Vanderpool and Jim Hyman, but I also continued to learn from so many other fine attorneys, including the entire Wabash County Bar, most of which is in attendance today. I continue to learn from community leaders like Bob McCallan, Margie Justice, Leroy Stryker, Bob Van Landingham, Bob Land. A lot of people in Wabash are named Bob. Scott Long, Scott Macon, Alex Falder, Maxine Baker, Clint Kugler, Phil Boone, and Linda Wilk. I continue to learn from so many of these and countless others that have impacted my life and led to this day. To all of you, thank you. This is your day too. I feel grateful to all my colleagues who are in attendance. This whole experience has been incredibly humbling, but the most humbling part of it has been the outpouring of support and encouragement that I've received from you. Whether you are a judge, an attorney, a police officer, a probation officer, a community corrections worker, a mental health professional, a victim's advocate, a social worker, or a GAL, if you are here today, it is because I could not have done my work without you. The Supreme Court is comprised of 5 justices with 5 different and distinct perspectives. The perspective that I will most naturally bring is one that is informed by 20 years' experience working in a rural county courthouse. If you are here today as my colleague, know that I continue to appreciate and respect your insight. This is your day too. I feel especially grateful to Connie Strigel, Lori Brewer, Sarah Lochner, and Tricia Haynes. So many people are responsible for lifting me up and sending me to serve here, but you 4 helped me to become the person and that the other people supported. I thank you all so very much. I would be remiss if I did not also express my feelings of gratitude towards all the wonderful men and women who work at the Indiana Office of Court Services. For 12 years, people like Jane Siegel, Vicki Davis, Mike McMahon, Jeff Berkovitz, Amanda Wishen, Jenny Bauer. Jenny was my first legal boss, and Amanda Wishen made me look good. You provided me with support that I needed to provide justice to ordinary Hoosiers. I think so much of all of you that I hired one of you to become my right hand. Thanks so much for what you do for the cause of justice in Indiana. I feel grateful to my new colleagues. Chief Justice Rush, you have been an encouragement to me for years, and I so appreciate your confidence. It is a pleasure to serve on your court, ma'am. Justice David, I never had a pledge master in college, but if I had known how fun it was and how much I would learn, I probably would have. You have been my assigned mentor, and I have appreciated your wisdom, your patience, your kindness, and your generosity. Justice Massa, I did not know you well before my appointment, but I knew of some of your accomplishments, and I knew how much so many of my colleagues respected you. Over the past several weeks, I've appreciated your collegiality, your hospitality, your wisdom, and your respect for other perspectives. Justice Slaughter, I did not know you at all before my appointment, but I followed your application process closely, and I knew that you were so very well respected among the appellate bench and bar. Over the past several weeks, I have so appreciated your kindness, especially to my family, and your sense of humor. I very much look forward to working with all of you, and hopefully for many years to come. I'm also grateful to Judge Mary Willis, Jason Bennett, judicial assistants, and all of the judicial family here at the State House and at 30 South Meridian who have made my transition such a pleasant one. Thank you all. I feel grateful to my children. All 4 of my children are here today. My oldest daughter, Ana Alicia, is here with her husband, Rob, and their daughter, Selah Ivy. Ana and Rob both work at White's Residential and Family Services. Ana is one of the directors of their substance abuse program. My son Daniel is a junior at Indiana Wesleyan. Daniel went on 2 mission trips to Kenya this summer, and he just returned from the 2nd trip, which he organized himself. Raquel and I are very glad to have him back because he was there during a very tumultuous election. My daughter Eva Elena is a junior in high school, and my daughter Isabel is a 4th grader. They are both more lovely and talented than I could describe in my allotted time. But kids, I want to say that I love each of you very much. Thank you for putting up with me, and thank you for supporting me through all of this. Finally, and I didn't forget, Justice David. Good. I feel so very grateful to my wife, Raquel. Raquel and I celebrated our 24th anniversary in July. In 1993, we were married at the Wabash County Courthouse. Judge Vanderpool, you'll see him later, performed the ceremony, and we went to work 2nd shift in a factory that night. We struggled for many years, as so many families do, but we always maintained a faith in each other, in our family, and in the promise of the future. Raquel, I never dreamed that things could be so good. Thank you, dear. I love you so very much. Thank you for being my best friend. Today, I'm also feeling a profound sense of responsibility. I feel a profound sense of responsibility to the citizens of Indiana. As a member of the state's highest court, I am charged with upholding the rights and protections guaranteed by our Constitution. As I make this transition from the county courthouse, I will always endeavor to remember that behind those lofty concepts are real human beings, and their lives and their aspirations are the very reason our Constitution exists. I feel a profound sense of responsibility to my colleagues. So many of the men and women in this room are here because they supported my application. Judge McCallum and I worked together for 12 years, and we both shared a commitment to achieving justice through collaboration. During my 12 years on the trial bench, our team in Wabash County resolved tens of thousands of cases. We accumulated a near-perfect record on appeal. We established 3 certified problem-solving courts, and we made things better for a lot of people. We did these things with a very small staff and, at least initially, with very few outside resources. I am proud of these accomplishments. However, almost any trial court judge in this room could make similar claims, and the truth is that any number of you are as qualified to sit here as I am. I will always do my level best to remember that. I want each of you to know that this is your day too. I feel a profound sense of responsibility to my predecessors on the court. My appointment represents a complete remaking of the Supreme Court since 2010. The group of justices who my colleagues and I have succeeded was known by most of the Shepard Court. That group was comprised of Chief Justice Randall Shepard, former Chief Justice Brent Dixon, Justice Frank Sullivan, Justice Theodore Boehm, and of course Justice Robert Rucker, who succeeded Justice Myra Selby in 1999. The final 5 members of the Shepard Court served together for 11 years, longer than any other group in Indiana history. While I could literally speak to you about each member of the Shepard Court in some detail, my time is short, and so it is fitting that I confine my comments to the justice that I have now succeeded. Justice Robert Rucker leaves an indelible legacy of public service to Indiana and to the nation. He is a decorated war hero, and his service to the judiciary is almost without equal, having served on the Court of Appeals for 8 years and then on the Supreme Court for 18 more. He also served his community, his family, and so many others in so many other ways as a quiet, humble, and thoughtful human being. Sir, I fear that I will never be able to fill your shoes. You have influenced me, perhaps more than any of your colleagues, because of a course you taught over 20 years ago. At that time, I was studying for the bar exam, and I was doing so remotely, watching a video cassette at the law library in Bloomington. You were one of the instructors, and the course that you taught was on equity. For those who might not know, equity essentially means fairness, and often when a person seeks relief from a court without a strong legal argument, he or she will appeal to the court's sense of fairness or equity. As an attorney, I probably used the lessons taught on that video cassette more than anything that I learned in law school. You see, most of my clients had very little, and so many times the law was not on their side. In such cases, I had to appeal to the court's sense of fairness. Sometimes my arguments prevailed, sometimes they did not. Even when I was not successful, I remembered the lessons that I learned, and when I later became a judge, those lessons drove me to create alternative programs to expand the circumstances under which courts could do equity and provide fair outcomes. In short, sir, you had a big impact on my career. And so, when I finally met you nearly 20 years later, the experience was quite meaningful to me. I will never forget the first time that you spoke to me. We were at a judicial function in French Lick, and we were standing at a table full of refreshments. Sitting on the table was a huge plastic jar of pretzels filled with peanut butter. And if I live to be 100, I will never forget the way that you grabbed a big handful of those pretzels and walked away. But as you did, sir, you turned to me and you said, "Chris, these are pretty good." Sir, 20 years ago, you taught me to be a voice for the voiceless, and I've not forgotten your lesson. Thank you. Finally, and perhaps most of all, I feel a sense of hope about the future of justice in Indiana. I feel a sense of hope about the future of justice because today we are gathered to celebrate the fact that someone born to teenage parents, married to the daughter of migrant workers, and from a remote part of the state has been selected to serve on Indiana's highest court. That gives me a sense of hope, because if such a thing is possible for me, why should it not be possible for any child? During my interviews with the Judicial Nominating Commission, I shared a story with them about my father-in-law. I hope you all got your picture today. He's a naturalized citizen from Durango, Mexico, and although he retired from General Motors in 2005, he worked for many years as a migrant farm laborer. As a boy, he did not have any shoes, and to cover his feet, he would cut up old tires and tie them on with rope. I often think about the struggles he endured to give his family the opportunity to live in Indiana, and when I do, any trouble that I might be facing seems to melt away. To my brothers and sisters at the bench and bar, we have at our disposal vast resources that could not have been dreamt of a generation ago. When I think about that, I wonder what big things we could accomplish if we were willing to really work together. I hope in the years to come that Indiana becomes the place that provides a workable resolution for the opioid epidemic that so plagues our nation. I hope in the years to come that Indiana becomes the premier destination for self-fulfillment and prosperity. I hope in the years to come that Indiana becomes a place that is celebrated for its recognition of the inherent dignity and value of all people. Throughout my life, I have had hopes that seemed impossible, and perhaps some of the hopes of which I speak today are impossible, but I don't think so. I am living proof that anything is possible, and so if you are a person who says that lofty goals are impossible, let me challenge you to do something different. The next time that you are tempted to criticize a lofty goal as impossible, instead ask yourself, what could I do to achieve that goal? And do that. Thank you all for being here. Please stay as long as you can.
sitting here, you notice the courtroom is lined with photographs, faces of former Supreme Court justices. Justice Goff's portrait will now be unveiled by a gentleman he just spoke of, Senior Judge Daniel Vanderpool. Judge Vanderpool hired Justice Goff for his first judicial job in Wabash County in 2000. Judge Vanderpool.
Thank you, Justice. If I could just say a few words before unveiling the portrait. I've known Chris for a very long time, all of his life, as a matter of fact, and I've probably even seen his bare ass, if I can say that in this chamber. But that was when he was a young man, not recently, not recently. I got a call from Chris asking me if I would be willing to do the unveiling, and he didn't put it in those words. He said, Dan, would you mind coming to the ceremony and assisting me with it? I'll have you do the disrobing. And I thought, I don't really think you want me to do that, Chris. Unless people have their eclipse glasses still with them, maybe that will work. But no, and I said, Chris, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, there's going to be a cloth over my head. I need somebody to pull it off. And I said, okay, you mean it's like a burial shroud? And he said, no, Dan. And I said, wait, I think it is a burial shroud because I've seen Justice David since he's been on the court. And he's talking about his age today, so I thought maybe I should bring that up.
You should have been in the opening act.
Yeah. But no, Chris is a very good man. Governor, you've made a wise choice. And Chris, congratulations.
Thank you, Dan.
And he's smiling. Thank you, Raquel, for helping him pick out that picture. And thank you, Judge Vanderpool. Well, just a few final comments to stand between me and the reception and a lot of food that's out there. So, Justice Goff, as you sit here, you're surrounded by history. Do you feel it?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Over 100 faces adorn these walls. Each of these faces has two stories: the story that brought them to the court and the story they created as part of the court. You too have a remarkable story that brought you to this court, and an Indiana Supreme Court story you're just beginning to write. Having been part of your selection process, I'd like to point out what I believe are two parallels. And I wanted to talk about one justice from each of the walls, some parallels between you and some of the former faces and persons that served before you. To my left, two over, two down, is Jeremiah C. Sullivan, Justice number 8. They called him judges at the time. I'm going to refer him to as justices now. He had his priorities straight, putting family and faith first. He raised a prominent attorney and 2 Civil War generals for the Union Army. Justice Sullivan once was known to have counseled his children, and I quote, "The first great object with all of us should be the glory of God. If we do to mankind all that he requires us to do, we shall be truly and extensively useful." Justice Goff, it's been a privilege to meet Raquel and your children. I know that you, like Justice Jeremiah Sullivan, believe the relationship between family and faith is paramount. I'm confident that you raised your children in that spirit. Turning to the wall behind you, one of the gentlemen looking south, Justice number 31, for top row, William Woods. Justice Woods and Justice Goff both started their careers with very little. Woods was forced to take up farming at age 12 to support his family and worked at 14 driving oxen and operating a gristmill saw. Similarly, Justice Goff worked his way through college at a factory and started his career with a 1986 Dodge Colt, $70, and 2 kids. Despite countless challenges, both Justice Woods and Justice Goff became great trial judges, paving their way to this court. William Woods was also a man of character. While Woods was at Wabash College, a relative sent him a slave, intending for Woods to sell the slave to pay for tuition. But as an ardent abolitionist, Woods freed the slave, announcing that he would rather abandon school than sell a fellow human. Justice Goff, I know that you too are a man of character. I learned that from talking to countless people, that you treat everyone with respect, and you live out that great American promise that Lady Justice is blind. Everyone receives equal justice under the law. We are all well aware, going over to this other wall, that Justice Goff is replacing someone we deeply respect, Justice Robert Rucker. Every day on this court, Justice Rucker lived out that's something no court can have too much of, a great sense of humanity. Justice Rucker's story includes that he always had the ability to see beyond the record and the briefs and to see the person behind it all. The five of us up here together will write a new story as your Indiana Supreme Court, while borrowing heavily upon the collective wisdom of all the stories represented by the faces on these walls. We celebrate with your family and friends. You're taking your place in these walls, ready to begin your story as 110th Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court. Congratulations. There's just one thing left to say. By my current count, we have 32 cases on the docket next Thursday, and it's time to get back to work. Thank you.